The first time Warren Whitlow walked into the Interstellar Cultural Exchange Academy on Zoraquan 9, he tripped over a bench he didn't see and slammed shoulder first into a wall made of something sturdier than steel. The wall didn't move. Warren did. He reeled back, let out a pained grunt, and clutched his shoulder. Son of a yeah. Okay, that's bone, he muttered, rotating his arm gingerly. Across the hallway, a tall, purplish alien froze mid-step. Its long neck craned toward him, eyes wide with translucent lids blinking rapidly. You are expiring? No, just bruised, Warren said, waving him off. I'll be fine. The alien, Zunrel, didn't move. Bruised, he repeated. Is that the stage before fatal collapse? Warren blinked. Wait, what? Zunrel moved closer, his thin limbs trembling slightly. You struck the wall with high force and now exhibit surface hemorrhaging. This is commonly fatal in our species. Shall I summon medical extraction? No, don't do that, Warren said quickly, trying to sit on the bench he'd tripped over. It's not that deep, man. Humans bruise. It's just blood under the skin. Looks nasty, feels worse, but I'll live. Zunrel stared at him with what Warren assumed was horror. So your internal systems are leaking, and you remain upright. Yeah, Warren said, pulling his backpack off. I've got ice in here somewhere. You brought cryogenic treatment? Zunrel asked, voice raised. Warren pulled out a soft blue gel pack, cracked it, and pressed it to his shoulder with a grimace. I brought lunchtime ice packs. But yeah, same idea. Two more students, both Zoraquan, rounded the corner. One of them, a shorter greenish one named Ket, gasped as soon as he saw Warren with the ice pack. He is dying. I'm not dying, Warren said, a little louder this time. I just hit a wall. Then why is your dermis ruptured? Ket asked. It's called bruising. It happens when blood vessels break, but the skin doesn't. Happens all the time. I once got one shaped like a pineapple. Zunrel whispered something to Ket, then turned back. We request permission to escort you to medical. Appreciate the concern, Warren said, switching the ice pack to a fresh spot, but I've had worse. Ever fallen down a hill while holding a metal sled in January? Now that's a full body bruise. The aliens looked at each other in silence. A klaxon buzzed overhead, signaling the start of interworld physical integration. Warren stood, testing his shoulder with a wince. We've got training. Let's head down. You intend to participate in physical exertion while deteriorating? Buddy, if I sat out every time I had a bruise, I'd never leave the house. Warren strode off, leaving Zunrel and Ket in stunned silence before they hurried after him. The training hall was massive, built to accommodate 30 different species, each with their own gravity preference, oxygen mix, and spatial needs. Various platforms floated along the perimeter, and a grid of shifting tiles covered the central floor. Instructor Relka, a stout, blue-scaled being with a booming voice, welcomed them. Today, we will practice interspecies evasive maneuvers. Pairs will be chosen at random. Warren ended up with Ket. Ket looked hesitant. I believe you're medically compromised. I'm sore, Warren said. That's different. Relka blew a horn that sounded like a bassoon being stepped on. Ket lunged, and Warren dodged left, pivoted, and rolled under a wide swing. His shoulder screamed as he landed, but he gritted his teeth and popped up. All right, note to self, he muttered. Rolling is off the table. Ket paused. You are in agony. Yeah, Warren said, breath short. But I'm not broken. Probably. He blocked another strike, ducked, and tripped Ket with a low sweep. Ket went down with a soft grunt. Are you injured? Warren asked, offering a hand. Ket stared at it. You are still mobile. This is unsettling. Warren chuckled. You should see me after a football game. I do not know what that is. Let's keep it that way. By the time the session ended, Warren's bruises had bloomed into vibrant shades across his upper arm and rib cage. He limped slightly as he walked to the hydration station. Zunrel approached, holding a small device. I acquired a medical scanner. Would you permit a reading? Sure, Warren said, lifting his shirt. Zunrel scanned him and made an alarmed noise. You have severe soft tissue trauma and microvascular damage. Your pain tolerance must be immense. It's not fun, Warren admitted, but it's not permanent either. Your biology permits this? Permits? Barely. But we manage. Ket and Zunrel stared at him. You are remarkably fragile and yet persistent. Story of humanity, Warren said, sipping from a hydration pouch. That night, he iced the bruises again in his dorm, this time lying flat on his back, groaning softly. He debated skipping the next day's class but decided against it, partly out of stubbornness. Mostly because none of the alien students seemed to understand how Bruises worked, and he wasn't about to let them start writing eulogies. The next morning, Warren walked into advanced survival tactics with a noticeable limp and a fresh pack of ice strapped to his side. The instructor, a long-limbed species named Ulsta, raised a brow like Rich. "You carry an injury." "I'm good," Warren said. "Just a bruise." Ulsta turned to the class. "Note: the human has sustained visible trauma yet continues activity. Study the behavioral implications." Zunrel whispered to Ket. "I believe this is a ritual of defiance." "No," Ket replied. "I believe it is madness." The training involved simulated low-gravity environments and obstacle navigation. Warren made it halfway through a vertical climb before his shoulder failed him, and he dropped 10 feet onto a padded mat. He lay there, winded, blinking at the ceiling. Ket leaned over him. "You have fallen." "I noticed," Warren wheezed. "Should I summon immediate care?" "Not yet. Give me a minute." Ulsta floated over. "You must not ignore your limits." "Humans are not known for regeneration." "No argument here," Warren said, slowly sitting up. "But I heal. Just takes time." Zunrel approached with a folded blanket. "For comfort and warmth during your decline." "I'm not declining," Warren said, accepting the blanket anyway. "And thanks." He spent the next hour on the sidelines, quietly explaining the concept of hematoma, the difference between contusions and fractures, and the importance of rest and ice. The aliens took notes diligently. By the end of the week, Warren's bruises had darkened to deep purples and greens, but he could raise his arm again without flinching. He joined another training module, low impact this time, and completed it with minimal pain. Zunrel observed him closely. "You have endured significant injury, minimal intervention, and have now partially recovered. This is extraordinary." "It's biology," Warren said, "and a lot of frozen peace." Ket tilted his head. "So you are not invulnerable. Merely stubborn." "Exactly." Word of Warren's survival began to spread. Students from other programs started showing up during breaks, asking questions. "Did your circulatory system reroute?" one asked. "No, it just stopped leaking." "What did you consume to regenerate?" another asked. "Soup and protein bars." "Did you enter hibernation?" "I took a nap." By the third week, Warren's bruises had faded to a sickly yellow, and most of the pain had subsided. He resumed full training. Zunrel and Ket now treated him with a strange combination of caution and admiration. "You are not the strongest," Zunrel said one day, "nor the fastest. Yet you endure." "Yeah," Warren said. "That's kind of our whole thing." Later that month, during a group simulation involving planetary evacuation under duress, a Zoraquan student twisted his limb mid-run. He collapsed, shrieking. Warren reached him first. "I think it's a sprain," he said. "Don't move it. Breathe." Zunrel and Ket arrived seconds later. "He's in distress." "I know," Warren said. "Help me stabilize him." As they worked, Ket looked at Warren. "You are instructing us in care. You watch me do it for myself. Now we help others." Zunrel nodded. "This is unexpectedly noble." Warren shrugged. "Just doing what we do." The injured student was transported to the med bay and recovered fully in a few days. The instructors praised Warren's quick response. By the end of the term, Warren's bruises were gone, but the story remained. A fragile human who walked into a wall, got banged up, and just kept going. Not because he was invincible, but because he could heal, and he knew how. Warren didn't expect to be summoned to the biocultural tolerance review panel, especially not for what he figured was just a mild shoulder bruise and some limping. But the invitation was delivered in person by a yellow-skinned quadruped with official-looking insignia on its chest and a translator slung around its long neck. It arrived during his midday break, interrupting an already awkward attempt to eat a protein bar in front of a trio of students who'd never seen chewing before. "You are requested for a post-incident behavioral debriefing regarding your recent trauma endurance demonstration," the courier said. Warren blinked. "Wait, that's a thing?" The courier gave a slow blink in return. "This facility does not permit unchecked displays of species-specific resilience without formal examination. You were observed persisting through multi-tissue damage. That has implications." "I mean, sure, but I iced it." "Yes," the courier replied. "We filed that under unconventional species-specific intervention protocol." He was escorted to a domed chamber on the east wing of the facility. It smelled faintly of mint and ozone. Inside, half a dozen panelists hovered on raised platforms, each representing a different planetary delegation. They wore ceremonial garb, flowing fabrics, polished carapaces, and in one case, what looked like a cape made of live moss. A soft chime echoed. A Scythian delegate, tall and translucent, leaned forward. Human Warren, you continued physical routines after sustaining blunt force trauma. We request clarification. It was a bruise, Warren said, trying not to sound defensive. We get them all the time. It's not like I broke anything or passed out. A Trivian, whose entire face pulsed in time with its voice, made a note on a tablet. You engaged in physical activity despite compromised tissue. Is this typical of your species? Depends on the person. Some stay in bed over a stubbed toe. Others run marathons with sprained ankles. I'm somewhere in the middle. The moss-caped representative adjusted its perch. We observed no formal treatment, no immobilization, no hormonal suppressants, no dermal regeneration agents. I iced it and rested. That's standard for us unless it's serious. From above, the Scythian delegate turned to the others. He's self-limited. That indicates awareness of threshold. I didn't push through it out of pride, Warren said. I just knew it wasn't dangerous. Hurts, yeah, but I've dealt with worse. The Trivian narrowed its eyes. What metric determines worse in your species? Warren scratched the back of his neck. Well, internal bleeding, broken bones, concussions, spinal stuff, organ damage. Bruises don't even rank. The moss shifted slightly. You classify subdermal hemorrhaging as inconsequential? If it doesn't interfere with movement or cause swelling that cuts off circulation, yeah. The panel was silent for a moment. Then the Scythian delegate extended a data rod toward him. You are hereby designated a Category 2 adaptive entity. Your behaviors will be logged for resilience modeling. What does that mean? It means, the moss said, we're still not sure whether to admire you or restrict you. Warren left the chamber an hour later, not entirely sure if he'd been congratulated or politely warned. Probably both. Later that afternoon, he returned to the shared lounge, where Zunrel and Kit were gathered around a projection of a Terran anatomy model. They looked up when he entered. You were summoned, Kit said, not looking away from the display. We assumed disciplinary review. Warren flopped onto a cushion. Close. They think I'm some kind of adaptive anomaly. Zunrel tilted his head. So they are studying your pain tolerance. I think they're trying to figure out why I didn't shut down. Because you are biologically unstable, Kit offered. Incorrect, Zunrel said. He is biologically inefficient, but psychologically persistent. Warren pointed at him. That one. That's the definition that'll end up in your textbooks. Zunrel turned the projection into a slow rotation of the shoulder girdle. We ran an overlay of your injury based on your descriptions. The tissue trauma should have inhibited movement across 3 major joints. But you continued to climb. Yeah, Warren said. It sucked. You did not vocalize that. I was busy trying not to fall again. Ket blinked. We assumed silence meant absence of pain. Nope. Silence meant I didn't want to look weak. Zunrel leaned forward. You restrict expression to maintain status? Sometimes. Depends who's watching. Ket hummed. That seems inefficient. Welcome to humanity. An hour later, the trio joined a bioadaptive simulation module. The task was simple. Cross a terrain filled with shifting surfaces, low oxygen zones, and unpredictable temperature drops. The others were issued oxygen regulators and insulated overlays. Warren was handed a single thermal vest and a pair of gloves 2 sizes too big. Is this it? He asked the simulation tech, a bipedal organism with 4 eyes blinking in asynchronous rhythm. Your metabolic range suggested this would suffice. I mean, I'll be cold, but I won't die. That was our conclusion. The floor beneath them shimmered, and the terrain loaded into place. They started moving. After 20 minutes, the air thinned. Ket's regulator hissed softly as it adjusted. Zunrel's skin darkened slightly, adapting to the lower oxygen. Warren's breathing quickened. All right, this is not ideal. You are hyperventilating, Zunrel noted. Yeah, that happens when you don't have enough air. You require assistance? No, I'll pace myself. They reached a slope covered in a soft, shifting powder. Ket sank halfway to the knees and clicked in frustration. Zunrel took a wider path, moving with cautious steps. Warren followed the edge, slipping once and catching himself on a rock outcrop with his still healing arm. He winced. That was unwise, Zunrel said, turning back. It was that or land face first. You were injured again? No, just reminded I'm not fully healed. You continue despite disadvantageous conditions, Ket said, sounding almost impressed. Warren looked up. You guys keep saying that like it's a mystery. It's not complicated. You keep going because you need to. I don't like pain, but I'm not going to sit down in the snow and wait for someone to carry me. Zunrel considered that. Perhaps persistence is your most dominant trait. Could be. We're not the strongest, and we're definitely not the smartest, Ket interrupted. Confirmed. But we don't quit easy. At the far end of the terrain, a sudden temperature drop kicked in. The air went sharp and biting. Warren's nose started running almost immediately. His fingers stiffened inside the oversized gloves. You're freezing, Zunrel said, watching him closely. Yeah, I know. Should we abort? No. Let's finish. Ket frowned. You are visibly shivering. I'll warm up once we're out. This kind of cold doesn't kill fast. Kill fast? Zunrel repeated. Warren kept walking. It's a thing back home. Cold that sneaks up on you is worse. This? You feel every second. You know when to stop. They emerged from the simulation half an hour later. Zunrel's skin returned to its default shade. Ket peeled off his regulator and shook snow dust from his joints. Warren's lips were slightly blue. He held his hands under a heat lamp, flexing them slowly. You need thermal repair? A tech asked. I'll take a hot drink and a seat, Warren said. That should do it. Zunrel sat beside him. You are remarkable. I'm sore and cold. Yes. And you endured again. Later that evening, Warren lounged on his dorm bunk with a heated pack across his shoulders. A message blinked on his wristband. A request from the Interworld Athletic Committee to consult on human endurance for their upcoming resilience trials. He sighed. You keep getting more popular, came Ket's voice from the hallway. I wish they'd pick someone with better knees. You demonstrated a trait we lack. That makes you valuable. Warren sat up. You really think it's valuable to just keep going when it hurts? Yes, Zunrel said, stepping into view. Because most of us stop. Warren laid back down, the heat soaking into his muscles. Then I guess we're just weird like that. Neither alien responded. They didn't need to. They'd already started adding his name to the training modules under a new section, Human Adaptation, Case Study in Endurance Beyond Logic. The Academy's medical wing had never been busier or louder. Warren sat on the examination table, shirtless, with a cooling gel sheet plastered across his back. It wasn't serious, just a strained muscle along his scapula from the last simulation. He'd twisted too far trying to dodge a rapidly expanding foam trap and caught the edge of a pressure wall. Lean forward again, said the medic, a pale green being with 6 fingers and a pair of dark, bulbous eyes that refused to blink. Warren grunted and complied. I'm not feeling any tearing, but you've got inflammation wrapped around the muscle group here, the medic said, tapping gently. You should avoid rotational force until it settles. Got it. No twisting. Straight lines only. You would recover more quickly with neural shock inhibitors. And feel like my legs are filled with static? No thanks. I'll just rest. You continue to decline basic chemical relief, the medic said, adjusting the scanner. You are aware that natural healing is inefficient. Yeah, but every time I take something strong, I end up falling asleep in weird places and waking up convinced traffic cones are edible. So I'll pass. Without replying, the medic tapped a few final notes into his panel and slid the gel patch further down. You're cleared for light activity. No impact. No dynamic movement. Hydrate. Warren stood slowly, stretching until the tape pulled. Thanks. I'll try not to get hit by anything solid for the next 48 hours. Statistically unlikely in this academy, the medic muttered. Back in the Commons lounge, Zunrel was standing by a transparent projection of a rotating asteroid. He turned as Warren entered, eyeing the bandage through Warren's thin shirt. Another injury? Just a tweak. I've been told to walk in straight lines and not turn my head too fast. That seems incompatible with your usual coordination patterns. Tell me about it. Ket was already seated, flipping through a digital archive of human sports footage. He paused on a clip of professional hockey and pointed at the screen. Explain this. That's a guy getting checked into the boards. He is then struck in the throat by another stick. He does not leave the competition. Nope. He keeps playing. He bleeds. Yup. And continues. Warren nodded. Welcome to playoff season. Zunrel folded his arms. You voluntarily watch this? Religiously. Minutes later, the three of them were seated around a table with bowls of nutrient broth. The atmosphere was unusually quiet until Ket broke the silence. Do all humans risk permanent damage for recreation? Not all, Warren said. Just the fun ones. You refer to pain tolerance with humor, Zunrel said. Because if I didn't, I'd cry more often than I'm proud of, Warren said. The thing about pain is, you learn to live around it. You don't stop it. You just figure out how to move without making it worse. Ket looked thoughtful. You normalize suffering. Warren stirred his broth. Trust me, we complain a lot. But yeah, we walk around with pulled muscles, cracked ribs, migraines. We keep going. Because most of the time, nobody's going to fix it for us. Zunrel tapped the edge of his bowl with a claw. We have noticed that you rarely request aid. Even when surrounded by assistance. I've spent years being told to walk it off. It sticks with you. The next day, Warren was excused from the standard training block and instead assigned to observational duty in Simulation Dome, a high-pressure, low-gravity environment designed to test response protocols under atmospheric stress. He stood behind a glass barrier, watching a mixed-species group attempt to coordinate a supply retrieval while simulated wind gusts buffeted the terrain. Behind him, Instructor Alsta entered with a clipboard-sized device, glancing between the simulation and Warren. I heard about your back. Nothing serious. Just strained a few things. You have accrued 6 minor injuries in 1 month. I've been keeping track too. I'm trying to collect all the colors of bruising before the semester ends. Alsta didn't smile. I reviewed the footage from your last simulation. You delayed your exit by 32 seconds to pull another student out of the foam trap. That delay worsened your injury. They were stuck. Protocol required disengagement. I couldn't leave them. Alsta studied him for a long moment. You are aware that your instincts contradict most species safety directives. I don't do it to be noble. I just couldn't imagine walking away. The instructor made a note. You are not exceptional in strength, nor reflexes. But your behavioral patterns are being considered for strategic inclusion. Warren blinked. Inclusion in what? Resilience modeling. Adaptation algorithms. Emergency prioritization metrics. He frowned. You're turning stubbornness into a data point? Yes. Warren gestured toward the simulation. You know that most of that isn't me being brave. It's just what happens when you grow up falling off bikes and climbing trees with no supervision. Alsta turned to leave. Precisely. Later that week, the Academy held its first cross-species endurance evaluation. It was optional, but students from 20 different worlds signed up. Some came for bragging rights. Others, to test their limits. Warren showed up with his shoulder taped, compression wraps on both knees, and a bottle of electrolyte gel in his pocket. Zunrel met him at the registration gate. You are not recovered. I'm as close as I'm going to get. You will not win. Probably not. Then why enter? Warren looked at the sprawling course ahead. Uneven terrain, intermittent gravity shifts, simulated quakes, and a long series of balance beams suspended over soft gel. At the far end, a low wall glowed red, signaling the finish line. Because I want to see how far I can go before the duct tape gives out. Ket approached with a data reader. You are ranked 3rd lowest in probability of completion. Good to know. There's room for surprise. The race began with a tone that sounded like a dropped xylophone. Zunrel moved with practiced caution. Ket sprinted ahead, limbs unfolding for maximum reach across the first platform cluster. Warren followed with a steady jog, keeping his body centered, knees slightly bent. By the halfway mark, most of the competitors had slowed. A few were pulled out by support drones after misjudging the gravity wells. Warren kept moving, his pace uneven but determined. At the final obstacle, a rotating tunnel with shifting magnetic resistance, he faltered. His shoulders screamed again. His legs buckled once. You are not required to continue, said Zunrel, who had already reached the end and circled back. I know, Warren said, breath ragged. That's why it matters. He pushed forward on his hands and knees, dragging himself through the tunnel's last third. His palms burned. The wrap on his right knee had slipped. But the moment his hand slapped the exit pad, the tunnel deactivated and dropped him onto a padded mat. Ket stood over him, arms folded. You were out of breath, limping, and bleeding from the elbow. Yeah, but I finished. Zunrel crouched beside him, offering a hydration pack. We cannot explain your choices, but we now understand their value. Warren took the pack and leaned back on the mat, watching the lights fade overhead. You don't have to understand, he said. Just don't try to fix it. The evaluation results were posted that evening. Warren ranked 22nd out of 37. Not remarkable, not celebrated, but noted in the official report as exemplary case of non-optimal organism completing tasks through behavioral persistence. He grinned when he read that part. Back in the dorms, Zunrel handed him a small data crystal. What's this? A copy of the endurance evaluation. You were requested by 3 instructors to serve as a case reference. Me? A reference? Yes. For species exhibiting disproportionate outcome relative to physical disadvantage. Warren leaned back in his chair, legs stretched out, ice pack already strapped to his knee. Well, he said, it's nice to be appreciated for being slightly reckless. Ket entered, holding a box of bandages. You will need these again. Probably. You are a strange creature, Warren. I get that a lot. Zunrel tilted his head. But perhaps not as strange as we first thought. They sat together in companionable silence, the hum of the Academy's night systems fading into the background. No alarms. No simulations. No injuries waiting behind the next corner. For once, Warren was content to sit still. And nobody tried to stop him.